When you're chatting with a cute girl and you're thinking, is she into me, or am I just imagining things? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to be your secret weapon. Welcome to my channel, Philosophy of Stoicism. Today, we're diving into the top 10 questions a girl asks when she's totally crushing on you. As a girl who's used these myself, I know exactly what we're up to. These aren't just random questions, they're loaded with more hidden meanings than your mum. Lasagna has layers, so let's decode this girl code together, shall we? Our first sneaky question is one, what's your type? When we ask about your type, we're not just making idle chatter, we're using a little trick self-disclosure, reciprocity called self-disclosure. Reciprocity by asking about your preferences. We're creating a chance for mutual sharing. It's our way of saying, do I fit the bill, without being too obvious? And if we follow up with, oh, that sounds a lot like me, we're practically waving a flag of interest. Here's the kicker. We're also secretly hoping you'll turn the question around, because if you ask our type and then tick all those boxes, we'll be mentally planning our future faster than you can say, perfect match. So when we inquire about your ideal match, we're not just curious. We're wondering if we need to start clearing closet space for you. Now let's move on to another seemingly innocent question that's loaded with hidden meaning. 2. Are you seeing anyone? Are you seeing anyone? When we drop this question, we're not conducting a dating census. We're basically asking, is there a no vacancy sign on your heart? Or should I start unpacking my emotional baggage? It's our way of gauging your availability without being too forward. And if we follow up with a casual, oh, that's surprising, or their loss, we're not just being polite. We're mentally high-fiving ourselves and wondering if it's too soon to start planning our first date. But here's a pro tip. If we ask this and then suddenly start talking about how single we are, we're not just making conversation, we're basically skywriting. I'm available with a heart-shaped smoke trail. So when we inquire about your relationship status, we're not just being nosy. We're window shopping for a potential boyfriend, and you're the mannequin in the display. Speaking of displays, here's a question that might seem like it's about your physical appearance, but trust me, there's more to it. 3. Do you work out? Do you work out? When we ask if you work out, we're not planning to sign you up for a gym membership. This question is tapping into what we call the halo effect. We're complimenting your physique without sounding like we've been stalking you with binoculars. And if we follow up with it, really shows we're basically giving you a verbal high five while simultaneously imagining how good you'd look in a tank top. But here's the real game. We're also fishing for an invitation. We're hoping you'll say something like, yeah, want to join me sometime, because nothing says romance like sweating profusely next to each other on treadmills. So the next time we ask about your fitness routine, know that we're not just concerned about your cardiovascular health. We're wondering if your heart has room for one more person, preferably us. But physical attraction is just the beginning. We're also interested in what makes you tick. 4. What do you like to do for fun? When we ask about your hobbies, we're not just making small talk, we're employing the similarity attraction effect. We're naturally drawn to those who share our interests. It's our way of finding common ground and potential shared experiences. And if we respond with, oh, that sounds fun, I've always wanted to try that, we're not just being polite, we're mentally scheduling our next 10 dates based on your interests. But here's the real kicker. We're also secretly hoping you'll mention something we're passionate about, because nothing says match made in heaven like discovering you both enjoy underwater basket weaving or competitive dog grooming. So when we inquire about your leisure activities, we're not just killing time. We're trying to figure out if your idea of a good time involves us now. If we really want to get a sense of your domestic side, we might ask 5. Do you like to cook? Social role theory. When we ask if you can cook, we're not just worried about your nutritional intake. This question taps into what we call social role theory. In modern dating, the ability to cook is often seen as an attractive quality, regardless of gender. It's our subtle way of assessing your domestication level and imagining cozy nights in with homemade dinners. And if we follow up with, "Oh, you'll have to cook for me sometime," we're basically inviting ourselves over for a date without actually asking. It's our smooth operator move. But here's the secret ingredient. We're also low-key, wondering if we need to brush up on our own cooking skills. So when we inquire about your culinary capabilities, we're not just curious about your pasta-making prowess. We're wondering if you're the recipe for our happily ever after. But enough about staying in. Let's talk about going out. 6. What's your ideal date? Visualization. When we drop this question, we're not just making conversation, we're using a little trick called visualization. By asking you to describe your ideal date, we're encouraging you to create a mental image that potentially includes us. It's the dating equivalent of handing you a blank check and saying, "Fill in the details," and if we respond with "That sounds perfect" or "I love that idea," congratulations, you've just inadvertently scheduled our next date. But here's the plot twist. We're also secretly hoping you'll describe something that aligns perfectly with our interests. Because if your ideal date involves our favorite activities, we'll be mentally picking out our wedding dress faster than you can say, "Check, please." So when we ask about your dream date, we're not just gathering intel for future reference. We're hoping to star in the romantic comedy of your dreams. Now, if we really want to dive deep into your emotional side. 7. What's your love language? Love language. When we ask about your love language, we're not just brushing up on our relationship psychology, we're utilizing our emotional intelligence. This question shows we're interested in understanding how you express and receive affection. It's like we're asking for the cheat codes to your heart. And if we start talking about our own love language right after, we're not just sharing random information, we're giving you a step-by-step guide on how to win us over. But here's the real, that we're also mentally taking notes on whether our love languages are compatible, because if you say your love language is physical touch and ours is acts of service, we're already planning ways to combine the two. So when we inquire about your love language, we're figuring out the best way to translate "I like you" into a language you'll understand perfectly. And if we're feeling particularly romantic, we might just ask 8. Do you believe in soulmates? Soulmates? When we ask if you believe in soulmates, we're not writing a philosophy paper. This question taps into our romantic side, the belief in ideal, passionate love. It's our way of gauging whether you're open to the idea of a deep, meaningful connection without coming off as clingy. And if we follow up with, "That's so sweet, I feel the same way," we're basically casting ourselves in the role of your potential soulmate. It's subtle, but about as subtle as a neon sign in a dark room. But here's the plot twist. We're also secretly hoping you'll say something adorably romantic that we can gush about to our friends later. Because if you wax poetic about finding your other half, we'll be planning our soulmate-themed wedding faster than you can say destiny. So when we bring up the topic of soulmates, we're wondering if your soul and ours might just be two pieces of the same cosmic puzzle. Now, if we're feeling a bit bolder, we might just turn up the heat with this question. Biggest turn-on 9. What's your biggest turn-on? When we ask about your biggest turn-on, we're not just conducting market research for Victoria's Secret. We're employing a little technique called sexual priming by bringing up the topic of arousal. We're subtly shifting the conversation to a more intimate level. It's like we're asking for the password to your heart, but in a slightly more risque way. And if we respond with, "Oh really, that's interesting," while taking mental notes, we're not just being polite, we're updating our playbook faster than you can say hubba. But here's the real kicker. We're also secretly hoping you'll mention something we already do or have, because if you say your biggest turn-on is intelligence and we just finished our PhD, we'll be mentally high-fiving ourselves into next week. So when we inquire about what gets your motor running, We're figuring out how to rev your engine while simultaneously wondering if we're already your type of premium fuel. And finally, if we're ready to take things to the next level. 10. Do you want to grab a coffee? Sometime? Coffee date, when we ask if you want to grab a coffee. We're not just concerned about your caffeine intake. We're using what we call a low-risk invitation. Coffee is casual enough to not feel like a big commitment, but it's also a clear step towards spending one-on-one time together. It's our way of saying I like you and I want to spend more time with you without actually having to say those words and risk total humiliation. And if we follow up with, or we could do dinner if you prefer, we're basically giving you a menu of date options. It's the choose your own adventure of flirting. But here's the espresso shot of truth. We're also secretly hoping you'll suggest something even better, because if you counter with, how about that new art exhibit? Instead, we'll be mentally planning our artsy coffee-loving future together, faster than you can say ventil latte. So when we suggest a coffee date, we're hoping to turn that cup of joe into a steaming mug of potential relationship. All right, guys, now you're armed with insider knowledge on decoding girl speaker. If you found this video helpful, don't keep it to yourself. Smash that like button and subscribe to After School Psychology for more dating tips and tricks. Got any flirting stories or questions? Drop them in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Philosophy of Stoicism for more real, relatable advice on navigating the complexities of love and relationships. Remember, relationships take time, care and effort, but the rewards are worth it. When fear and caution are met with understanding and patience, they transform into trust and connection. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.